Thank you everyone to be here. A lot of known faces. Do I control the time or you guys?
Yeah, I can let you.
Oh, they're good.
Yeah, I can let you.
Okay. So thank you so much. I really want to start thanking all these logos here that finances us or are involved with our research. I'm from the Institute of Energy and Environment of the University of Sao Paulo, where I do my PhD in the Environmental Science grad program, for short. And I'm also a member of the Amazon Dams Network, which is financed by the NSF, and FAPESP and CAPES finance our work in Brazil. So today I was thinking about talking about hydropower plants, which we do all the time, but let's try to move forward in some subjects. Human development and forced displacement and resettlement in Brazil. But we try to manage the, not to talk just about Brazil, but about the phenomena itself. So why we are always talking about hydropower in Brazil, right? As Felipe said, hydropower are now responsible for 60% of our energy matrix, which it used to be more, like 75%, I guess. And this is from the latest energy development plan. So 6% is quite an important number, right? And we are pretty good in doing that. We do it for like 100 years, and we export technology and materials for, and also human capital from hydropower. So we are doing that for a long time. Brazil really likes to dam the rivers. So we are keep doing that. Actually, this is not that new, this is from 2003, but every point is in a hydropower plant, okay? And we can see that spot, which is like, there's no much hydropower here yet. But we're planning to change that. We're planning to dam a lot of Amazon rivers because the Amazon is here in this dark green area. And those are the existing hydropower plants. And these are the planned ones for the whole Amazon. So we are planning to expand our hydropower industry to the Amazon in the next years. So there's 94 in Brazil and at least 18 large projects like those Belo Monte size projects or so. We're now saying Brazil, there's a march of the hydropower industry towards the Amazon now. And actually, Carol is here, right? Moreto and Carol is one of the co-authors. So this is not just a Brazilian trend, it's also a global trend. You see those bars, the light gray is the existing dams, is the new dams within the decade, and the dark are the existing dams. So you can see that in the first decades of the 21st century, mankind is planning to build a lot of dams in the whole world, which is the same group of authors specialized in that, and there's some hotspots. And you know, China and India, Brazil, a lot of Southeast too, not just in the Amazon, and some parts of Africa too. So there's a lot of challenges concerning dams, and we have some evidence of the effects of dams, right? We can imagine lots of effects, and we have to recognize, we have to acknowledge that they contribute to economic and social development of human societies. This is an evidence. We use dams for a lot of things, like to control flood, to generate power, and to store water for irrigation, for example. But there's a lot of setbacks. There's a lot of, we call it negative impacts, like transformation of livelihoods, impoverishment of affected communities, social disruption, changes in land price. We can go and on and on. This is just a sample. and a lot of ecosystem consequences too. So these are evidence we can check on the scientific literature. There's a lot of material produced from that. And you know, mankind built dams since the Roman Empire, and we use it for hydropower since the 19th century. But there's still a lot to discover about the effects of dams. And one of the most remarkable questions are, what's about the dams and the local development? What happens when you build a dam on it? And we're talking about hydropower plant dams, okay? What happens to the local development, right? Because there's a lot of official discourse saying that they're pretty good to the local development. That this is in Portuguese, but okay. This is from the official plan too. One of the some of the socioeconomic benefits are the generation of jobs, like new job positions, or raises in the income of municipalities, okay? And some transitory and some permanent raises in income. Because, well, there's a huge industry there, and there's creating of job positions, and this is pretty good for the local. But, and this is from, this is 2011. It was before, at the starting of the construction of Belo Monte Dam. And the sort of says that Belo Monte will also improve life condition of local communities. This is in the official discourse of the government, the Brazilian government. And this is happening all over the world, okay? We have dams all over the world, and people are justifying those projects in the grounds of that they induce or promote or are good for the local development, okay? So MMA is like the Ministry of Mines and Energy, okay? There's plenty of evidence that hydropower plants, they actually create jobs, and they actually raise the income of municipalities, okay? In the short term, for at least. But there's no evidence of their inducing local development, because, you know, income is pretty different from development. You can have income, you can be a rich country or municipality or state or family, and you can have no human development, like access for health or education or security. So this is the whole debate about growth and development, those differences, and how economic growth can translate into development itself.
So what are the axes on this graph? The y-axis?
Oh,
what are they measuring? 0.1, is that an incremental change in jobs and income?
Yeah, it's like the, I have to check on that. I just missed that.
I'm guessing it's like percent change in jobs and income.
This is the years from the construction, and this is, I guess, is like on the marking point, raises in percentage. Yes.
Jobs and income.
Jobs and income.
Just another question. When you say income, the taxes?
From taxes and from the economic movement itself, like the dynamics, because those projects, they attract people, and so there's the taxes that come along with the dam itself, with the construction, and there's the whole second round of taxes from services, sales, you know.
Okay, but the income that goes to the municipalities is taxes.
Yeah, those are mainly taxes, and they go to the state too. And we are not talking about what is development, what is not development, because, you know, we just have some minutes and not a lifetime, and this is a discussion that takes a lifetime, or some. But we, our research group, we try to question what if hydropower plants are associated with better human development at the local level. They are or they're not. And for doing that, we are using the Human Development Index and its sub-indexes for health, education, and income from the Brazilian Atlas, I know, from Human Development. So we took a sample of 34, and there's a lot of, I'm not getting into the details of the methodology here because it would be boring. We took a sample of 34 hydropower plants that flood 98 municipalities, which are our cases. And we used the year of 2010 as a reference, and we positioned the hydropower plants according to the year to map the phases of construction of the dam. So 3 years before the construction is group 1, the dam, we positioned that in the group 1. And then, and this is the range of the life cycle of the dam. Took in the year of 2010 as a reference because we have those indexes. We have the range of 10 years, the variation of 10 years. We have to 91 to 2000 and 2000 to 2010 because they're national. They're produced by the UN, and this is a part of the United Nations Environmental Program. So our intervention group, like, it's the variation of 2000 to 2010, and our control group is the same. We use it from 91 to 2000 for the same municipalities, for the same group of municipalities. So we compare the first variation for the same group to the second group, and the second group is the group where there are dams, where municipalities are already flooded by dams according to this range. So, and these are the municipalities, the flooded ones, they're in green, and the little tiny dots, blue dots, are the dams itself. So they're spreading all over the country. And these are the results. For the control period, we have, this is the control period for income, and this is the treated period, okay? So we have a boom here of income for the municipalities for the group 5, which is the second half of the construction, which makes sense because construction is advanced and municipalities are making money with the construction itself. So there's a boom there, okay? It's clear? It's like strange? Okay. I never did that in English. You have to recognize that. Or even in Portuguese, I guess. So for education, we have a different trend. We actually see a boom. Oh, I forgot to mention, there's the statistical test was Mann-Whitney and Pruskal-Wallis tests. Okay, so these groups are different, like statistically different, and we see it as a boom. When we see a statistical difference in a raise, we consider it a boom. But after the operation, we evidenced a bust in the education, which is like they are statistically different from the other groups, the precedent groups, okay? And we have this same situation for health, for example. There's a huge bust here, okay? You see the control group, the difference between the control and the treated period. And for the whole Human Development Index, the same. We have 2 busts, actually. So we are trying to figure out how the hydropower plants are related to development, and we started to realize that maybe this is a movement of boom and bust. When the dam, the hydropower plant is constructed, there's a huge expansion of a lot of aspects of social life. There's a lot of expansion of the demands for health or for education and the income itself. But in the long term, the income generated does not support the new system.
Your graph isn't showing two buses. I mean, on top, there's only one red. It's 7.
Oh, but there is a, we identify a statistic difference. We just painted those. Maybe this is like a mistake, but.
There's also middle, and you have the bus.
Here.
Both, the bus would be 4. That would be the middle of the structure.
This is true. We have to check on that. This is why they reject our paper. You realize that? Yeah. Okay, sorry for that. Well, we observed that the economic boom did not sustain in the operation and after that, okay? And even with the income, the bus is not avoided because we would expect to, when you have more money, we have more ways to improve education and security and health and all the social dimensions, okay? So this is what we figured it out. And as a hypothesis, or several, we're trying to imagine that what causes that and the like those social impacts, what's related to the social impacts. And according to the literature, we are figuring out that maybe that's the whole process of migration, that the hydropower construction being like a pole of migration of workers and all other groups, and the whole process of displacement and resettlement that dams cause. And they're associated with a lot of effects like population overload, changes in the employment opportunities and income generation for the people in the municipality, changes in household size and structure, access to natural resources, and access to education itself. So you can imagine like Belo Monte, the dam, I don't remember the number exactly, but the population more than doubled, I guess. It was like 40,000 people, and there's almost 800 now. In a municipality that historically lacks the presence of state, because the municipality itself, maybe it's bigger than some European countries. I don't know, it's huge. It's a huge municipality in terms of territory, not in like scale of the economic system population. And this is the whole work we've been doing as a group. And as a PhD student, I'm studying that, displacement and resettlement, and I'm looking at the Madeira River in Brazil. This is wrong, but okay. When you talk about what's the difference between move and being displaced? People move, people just migrate, people are moving. I'm not from here, okay? So we're moving all the time. But the difference is when the movement, when the migration is induced by development projects, there's no way you can stay. You're a kind of powerless social stakeholder, and it's very hard for you to stay. And the other thing is, the displacement is a byproduct of a project, which is a project that is usually proposed by strong political forces. And there's another difference, that it's impossible to return because the place is not there anymore. So in the case of them, there's a lake. And it's interesting because Oliver Smith, which is like related to here, right? He tried to explore how this kind of displacement and resettlement is even worse than those caused, for example, by wars. Because when you have wars, you can return back the places there. People reconstruct places after the war, but this is permanent. And we have to acknowledge that it's permanent when you manage and plan measures to deal with the resettlement process, because people usually don't. People usually plan for the next 10 or 15 years, but it's permanent. It's a lifetime. It's more than a lifetime, actually. It's all the time that the dam is there. How many minutes I have? Okay. So, but you have. But it's not necessarily bad for the people. Scientific knowledge tells us that they're not necessarily bad. People can use it as an opportunity. But the same guy that said that he studies this dam for 50 years, and he found no evidence that people actually profited from the displacement. Most people impoverished, and they lost the access to social, economic, and cultural resources to reproduce their livelihoods. So, and they also lack political power to decide how they will live and where they will live. So this is complex, because the official discourse is that you will be displaced to a better place, and you have more money, and you also have more opportunities to improve your life, or access to health and education, and all those dimensions of human health. So the Madeira River complex, where I'm studying, is in the northwest part of the Brazilian Amazon. And there are two dams, Santo Antônio and Giral, and those are pretty close to each other, actually. It's like an hour and a half by car. They are pretty close for each other. And both are in the municipality of Porto Velho, which is the capital of the state. And I took that image because it shows, I didn't have my maps yet, so this is why. And it shows where are the resettlement projects from Santo Antônio. This is the center of Porto Velho, the capital of the state. And there are some resettlement projects, they are pretty close, like half an hour by car. They're pretty close from the center, okay? And they're pretty close from the lake itself too. Here, oh, those white. So what I studied was those yellow dots, those yellow circles, which are the communities of Novo Engenho Velho, Riacho Azul, São Domingos. Those are 3 resettlement projects from the Santo Antônio Dam, and the 2 resettlement projects from the Giral Dam. They're pretty much happening at the same time, kind of the same time. It was 1 or 2 years of difference, but in the same period. And those are the size of the communities. They're not that big communities. Nova Mutum, Paraná, which were a huge community, people evaded from there, and now there's like 50. There is a quarter of the people that used to live there because people abandoned the resettlement project, which is a result itself, right, of unsuccess of some measures. So, and this is the landscape. This is what it looks like. People are very attached to fisheries and agriculture practices and extractivism. Okay, so this is Nova Mutum, Paraná, this is Novo Engenho Velho, and this is São Domingos. Very rural communities that raise cassava, yuca, or açaí. They collect açaí, they do the fisheries, and what else? Fruits, all kinds of fruits. Okay. And what's important to know is the vast majority of people displaced by large dams in the whole world, they subsist practicing agriculture, those kind of activities that are kind of closely related to ecosystem dynamics, right? They're not salesmen. They do not have a regular official work in the town. They usually grow food, fish, okay? which is way important because all the science, not all the science, but the vast majority of the science produced for the resettlement and displacement fields, it is produced by the bias of the social science itself, like anthropology and sociology. So we are trying to look at that as a way to introduce ecological variables to this whole process of thinking about development, forced displacement, and resettlement. Because since those people use a lot of natural resources and use ecosystem services and use the natural dynamic of a river, for example, we should acknowledge that ecological variables are maybe a keyhole, may play a key role in the whole process of producing outcomes of displacement. So it's kind of, people always say about livelihoods, changes in livelihoods. And those are the main, according to some literature, main components of livelihoods. And natural capital is there, and it produces strategies to subsist and effects like well-being, vulnerability, food security, and use of natural resources. And this is a very tricky word, but resilience. Okay? And this is before resettlement. And after resettlement, we can imagine that those capitals, they are shaken, and then maybe they produce new strategies and new effects. This is the whole model, the whole hypothesis we are working on. So maybe the process of resettlement is not merely social phenomenon, but a socio-ecological phenomenon. We can see it as a socio-ecological phenomenon too, in which ecological variables play a key role in the outcomes. This is a hypothesis. This is what we are working on. This is not a conclusion itself. So the main objective we're trying to reach here is to analyze the social ecological effects of the people displaced by those dams of the Madeira River. Okay? And for that, I was there for some days and took a sample of the community, and we interviewed people and asked them about, well, a lot of things, but it wasn't a survey because people answer a lot of surveys in their lives, maybe like every 2 weeks, because the company is still following up. So we had to do an interview, which was way better because we collect a lot of qualitative data too. And the moment is to organize this data. That's what I'm doing now, and that's what I'm trying to present now. So first, as main preliminary results, first it's important to acknowledge this gender issue. It was 56% of men I interviewed and 45% women. In total, we interviewed 61 households or representatives of households, who wanted to give the interview. Okay. And this is a chart about how they use the river. Okay. The blue and orange wasn't in purpose. Maybe it's like this was like Bill Gates thing. It was the Excel doing that. Okay, it wasn't on purpose. But the blue is before and the orange is after. Okay. And
was that axis that hours of use or? It's
mentions.
Okay.
Mentions of people saying that they use river for gather food, for scenic, for leisure, subsistence, transport, and I don't use the river for nothing.
So that's the percent of people.
The number of mentions actually, because people can mention 2 answers in a one person can mention like 3 or 4. So I counted it all. But people use it to use the river for leisure. The river and the riverine system actually, because they use those teeny tiny rivers too, and not just the Madeira River itself. And after, people don't use the river because there's well, there's a lake, there's not a river actually, right? But even far away from the lake, people don't use the river anymore because they actually can. Is not allowed to fish there. So the command and control institutions for fishery, they are more severe now, which is also a byproduct of the dam, of the construction. You know? And this is, we asked the opinion about the soil quality, what they think about the changes in soil. So if it got worse, if it's the same soil, it's the same quality of soil, if it got better, if they don't have no opinion at all, or they didn't want to answer or didn't answer, you kind of ask a question and people start to say about the cattle, about the, I don't know, you know what happens, right? And the vast majority say that the soil got worse, that the soil near the river was way better because it was more fertile. It was better to grow yucca or fruits, which makes sense, right? But it's not the quality of the soil they used to live that matters, is the current quality of soil now, because they are they should have the natural resources to produce and to reproduce their livelihoods. And what they are saying that they haven't. They haven't. Okay. So this is a chart about how the main activity that makes you your living. What makes your living? What you live off? What makes you money? So people say that the fishery used to be the main activity as a whole. Okay. And now is the retirement benefits, because a lot of people retired, and fisher, there's people still fishing, even that is not allowed, but they're still there. And there's some activities that grew, like, how can I say farinha? Like flour? Manioc? Yeah, manioc flour. Okay. This is important because the company managed the resettlements in order to foster growing yucca or growing manioc for making flour. So it should be the highest bar actually, but it's not. And another thing is extractivism is just gone. People do not extract anymore, like nothing. Well, they have regular jobs in town too. It grew, kind of grew some.
How is the empleo different from Salat? Isn't that like a job too?
Oh yeah, but this is like their job in the community. This is like in the town.
Oh, okay.
Because they live near town. Most of the resettlement projects are near town.
And more daylight. Yeah.
What, sorry?
More daylight. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Increase.
Oh, that's true. Which is people selling the labor force for one day to. Well, this is the thing. The manioc culture is so important to the context. I choose to separate those. Roça is from manioc, just manioc, and agriculture it was a whole. It was for people don't did just the manioc grow. They used to have fruits and all other like coffee, a lot of things. Simone.
No, I just wanted to mention that the area sometimes time of look at the area now, some of these per diem that they are actually for working for the company, like in the mentoring programs or in the competition program, activities. So, and maybe if you look later on, those GIs
Maybe. That's true. A good one, actually. Oh, sorry.
Bolsa Familia, why is not before?
Oh, yeah. Well, nobody mentioned it before. the Bolsa Familia, but they probably, maybe it wasn't that important because the question was, what is the main source of your income? Was the main one. It wasn't like, yeah, there's that too. People may, and they can use this as an arena to fight some fights, right? I was there.
And so these are all based on, you ask them about what was your main source of income before and after. So it's kind of important to, that's also a little bit perception, right?
Yeah,
so what they felt was the most important to them at that time.
And there's other thing that I tried to get the official information from the companies, but you guess the answer?
They didn't give it to you?
Yeah, they didn't give it at all because some information are like public access, but it's not that public. You have to go to Brasilia, you have to go there. So, okay, 5 minutos, we're finishing. Okay, so this is the main product produced. We had fish, and now we have people that do not practice agriculture or fisheries. Okay, like people abandoning their economic activities and just running because we're running out of time. And what they used to eat to change it. People used to eat fish, and now they eat more meat. And the source of the food also changed. People used to get fish from the river, and now they use the market to get their food, okay? It makes sense. The source of water changed too, as we are witnessing. People used to use the igarapés, which is the anytime rivers and springs, and now they use wells. Okay, wells. And the company that provides water. But they complain about the quality of the water too. And this is, I guess, the last one. What are your main expense? What your bills? Okay, and rancho is like the whole gather of groceries that people buy from the month or for the week, and now they spend in energy, which is quite controversial because it's an hydropower plant, right? This is like, and those bills are huge. So the main partially conclusion is that people are abandoning these activities that are closely related to ecosystem dynamics, and maybe they are trying to put activities that control ecosystem dynamics, like using fertilizers and using agrochemicals to control and to foster agriculture. And they're abandoning subsistence to market-oriented activities too. Those are the, like, long story short. And this is not casual, this didn't happen by chance, but the project of the company, the project of resettlement was to do it like that, to get people and incentivize them to undertake this kind of agriculture. And maybe the resettlement process was a way to insert communities in the institutions of modern Western society, put under surveillance and put under the market. And the question is this a kind of colonization, like a byproduct of colonization of the whole project itself? And there was a primacy of the financial and physical capital all over components of livelihoods, like the human capital, the knowledge that people have. It wasn't that valued in the process, as we are trying to see what's the importance of those kinds of capital. And that's it. Okay.